Hey everyone, lost my voice there. Hey everyone, this is Laura from TheReallauraB here on YouTube and on Twitter. Today I'm going to bring more from my Unsealed series. This is going to be how Depp team was desperate to try and get Amber Heard's prior arrest in and the hoops they had to jump through to get a little bit of it in. So I'd like to share this with you today. Hang in there.
Hi, I'm Laura, also known as TheReallauraB from Twitter, and now here on YouTube. I'm a researcher, new wave internet media, and commentator. I'm not a lawyer nor offering any legal advice. Join me on a journey to review the world of celebrity lawsuits and current events. Let's get started.
Well, back in 2016, I was shocked to hear the allegations against Johnny Depp. I never, ever would have placed him in that kind of a situation thinking he could harm a woman. Yeah, he'd had a reputation of being bad boy. He had a reputation of maybe acting out, but never against a woman. In fact, he was very gracious. I remember things coming out from Pirates of the Caribbean that he was helping Penelope Cruz because she was pregnant. He was doting on her and, you know, making sure she was okay all the time. He just seemed to be a very caring person in general. And I just couldn't believe it hurt a woman. And then we read the letter, the demand letter, and I'm like, yeah, this is no way this is happening. And then what came out was Amber Heard's prior arrest for DV. So let me share that with you. The first one to break this story was, in fact, TMZ. Amber Heard arrested for domestic violence against her girlfriend. This is from June 7, 2016. Amber Heard, who claimed she was a victim of domestic violence by husband Johnny Depp, was herself arrested for domestic violence against her then domestic partner, TMZ has learned. According to law enforcement services, sources, and documents, Amber and Tasya Van Ray got in an argument on September 14, 2009 at Seattle-Tacoma International Airport. Amber allegedly grabbed and struck Tasya in the arm, which upset Tasya and triggered the arrest. Amber was arrested and booked for misdemeanor domestic violence. Her mugshot was taken and she appeared in court the following day. So she spent the night in jail. TMZ has obtained the audio of court hearing when the prosecutor declined to move forward with the case. We're told because the women both lived in California, the judge told Amber she was not off the hook. Prosecutors could reconsider and refile within the 2-year statute of limitations. Amber thanks the judge and leaves the courtroom. We reached out to Amber's lawyer. So far, no word back. Now, my question has always been, and I've never found this out, they were at the airport arguing. Amber was arrested. She spent the night in jail. Did Tasya just leave? I mean, did she just leave her behind? Did she hang out? She didn't come speak in the court, apparently. No report of that we know of. But anyway, let's listen to the audio of the hearing.
This is the state of Washington versus Amber Van Ree, cause number CPS 013529. Stephanie Saad on behalf of the state. Ms. Van Ree is present in custody with counsel, and I didn't get your name.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. Michelle Shaw, and I apologize. I walked out of the courtroom, Your Honor.
The state is declining to file charges at this time.
Okay, what that means, ma'am, is no charges will be filed against you today. However, that could happen in the future. Therefore, we want to make sure we have your correct address. Sycamore Avenue in Los Angeles, right?
Yes.
So you're notified by me if anything happens within the statute of limitations. Statute of limitations on a case like this is 2 years. So make sure that if your address changes, that you're notified. Otherwise, it could result in warrants, and that would be a DV case, and that can have cross-state implications. So because you're in California, it wouldn't provide you any relief from the DV designation for much more.
Yes, Your Honor.
Any questions about that?
No, Your Honor.
Free to go. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you.
And there it is. So what happened after that? They gave a statement complaining that that the police were homophobic and misogynist, attacking Amber Heard like that. That never happened, and we were wonderful, happy together. Well, the police officer had something to say about that. That's for sure. Well, let's see what that was. Amber Heard, homophobic, misogynist cop, a gay woman. This came out June 9th, 2016. Amber Heard's ex-girlfriend, who just claimed Amber's 2009 arrest for domestic violence was bogus because the cop was a homophobe with a hint of misogyny. Couldn't be further from the mark because the officer is openly gay woman who also contributed money to a domestic violence organization. Amber's ex-domestic partner, Tassia Van Ray, minimized their altercation at Seattle-Tacoma International Airport, saying it was, and when I say saying, the way they're saying it here, it's our understanding that Amber Heard's attorney released a statement that Tassia Van Ray said this. It was misinterpreted and sensationalized by two individuals in a power position. She's referring to the cops who arrested Amber for allegedly grabbing and hitting Tassia. Officer Beverly Leonard was the actual arresting officer. She proudly posted pics of herself and her partner a few years back. She's also posted pics of herself at Pride Weekend. Leonard also supported an organization in Seattle that helps women who were victims of domestic violence. A source close to Beverly says the now retired officer is indignant, saying the arrest had nothing to do with homophobia. She was arrested for breaking the law. Although Tassia claims the incident was minor, police documents show there was actual property damage. Tassia's pendant was broken during the scuffle, and the documents also show Tassia was extremely upset with Amber for the alleged attack, so claimed the responding cops. So there it is. So what did this happen? Come to be, well, of course, Depp wants to bring this into the case. My understanding was Tassia also showed scratches on her arm in a statement that another media carried. Anyway, obviously Depp wants to bring in the arresting officer. He wants to bring it up. And of course, Amber Heard's filed in their motions of limine that allegations of Amber Heard abusing anyone and claims of Mr. Depp not abusing anyone should be excluded. Well, they want it. Mr. Depp's claims Amber Heard abused anyone. Throughout this litigation, Mr. Depp has attempted to pressure witnesses into testifying respecting Ms. Heard's purported abuse of other individuals, but there remains no admissible evidence supporting Mr. Depp's desperate claims that Ms. Heard ever abused any other individuals. Mr. Depp has further attempted to inject the issue of his allegations Ms. Heard abused him, despite the content of the op-ed forming the basis of Mr. Depp's defamation claim being wholly distinct from such allegations. First, this issue is not relevant to the core factual issue in both Mr. Depp's complaint based on the op-ed and the counterclaim. Whether Mr. Depp abused Ms. Heard, and for the counterclaim, the other related factual matters respecting whether Ms. Heard faked her injuries as Mr. Depp falsely contends. Mr. Depp even agreed, objecting that Ms. Heard seeking the facts of each supposed incident during which you contend that Ms. Heard inflicted any type of physical or emotional abuse or abuse upon you was unlikely to lead to the discovery of admissible evidence, and that it seeks documents and communication that are irrelevant, immaterial, unnecessary to the issues in this action. Secondly, we know Mr. Depp repeatedly attempted at deposition to pressure Whitney Enrique, Ms. Heard's younger sister, to falsely state that Ms. Heard hit her or threw objects at her, which Ms. Enrique denied. Third, Mr. Depp has repeatedly referenced the arrest at Seattle-Tacoma Airport, but Tassia Van Ray herself, whom Mr. Depp claims is the victim related to this arrest, has stated that Heard was wrongfully accused and that charges were quickly dropped as she was released moments later. This particular incident is also the subject of the motion in limine number 1 above. Finally, all the above evidence should further be excluded because the probative value of such evidence is substantially outweighed by the danger of unfair prejudice and the likelihood of misleading the jury on these matters. As noted above, the core facial issue for Mr. Depp's complaint and Ms. Heard's counterclaim is whether Mr. Depp abused Ms. Heard, and their counterclaim other related factual matters respecting whether Ms. Heard faked her injuries, as Mr. Depp falsely contends. For these reasons, any evidence, testimony, allegations, or references by counsel that Ms. Heard abused anyone should be excluded. So this is supposed to be in attachment 30. So let's take a look at attachment 30. Attachment 30 is supposed to be Heard's trial exhibit number 826, which is a June 8th, 2016 email between Heard and Gottlieb, and it is not attached here. It's missing. What does that tell me? It tells me Tasha Van Ray never sat for a deposition. Not only did she not testify in this case, but she must not have sat for a deposition or would have been here. So now we have an email from Tasha to Jody, and now we know where that statement got to that the lawyers later released by the hands of a PR agent, a publicist. So what does Mr. Depp have to say to this? Violence by Ms. Heard toward persons other than Mr. Depp. Mr. Depp construes the first part of Ms. Heard's motion to seek the exclusion of evidence of abuse by Ms. Heard of individuals other than Mr. Depp. Since Ms. Heard's abusive and violent behavior toward Mr. Depp, such as cutting off one of his fingers, is directly at issue in this case and obviously cannot be excluded. With respect to allegations of Ms. Heard abusing persons other than Mr. Depp, the motion is at best premature, and the court should reserve judgment until such time, if any, that evidence of Ms. Heard's abuse of other persons is sought to be introduced at trial. For instance, Mr. Depp should obviously be entitled to offer such evidence and testimony on rebuttal if Ms. Heard offers testimony or evidence that she has never abused anyone before. Similarly, such evidence must be relevant to establish Ms. Heard's ability to engage in violence and to impeach or undermine the credibility of Ms. Heard and her supporting witnesses who claim that she has never done so. For instance, deposition testimony of Jennifer Howell in this action indicates that Ms. Heard was frequently violent to her sister, Whitney Enrique, and that her sister has admitted that fact to her close friends, such as Ms. Howell. As another example, video exists, Ms. Enrique appearing to openly acknowledge that she suffers injuries from Ms. Heard years ago. Ms. Heard argues bizarrely and dishonestly that posing questions to witnesses such as Ms. Enrique at deposition about such matters constitutes pressure on Ms. Enrique to falsely state facts. But setting aside Ms. Heard's typical mischaracterization of straightforward and clearly appropriate deposition questions, there should obviously be no in limine ruling in the context of this case that violent behavior by Ms. Heard might not be relevant. In fact, there are at least 2 additionally known instances in which Ms. Heard has abused other people. For example, Ms. Heard was arrested in Seattle airport for assaulting her partner, at the time Tasha Van Ray. Also, Raquel Pennington, Ms. Heard's close friend, who has testified on behalf of Ms. Heard, testified in her deposition that one altercation between her and Ms. Heard became physical. Ms. Pennington testified that she pushed Ms. Heard, and Ms. Heard either pushed or hit Ms. Pennington back on Ms. Pennington's cheek. There's an exhibit, and we heard that testimony. Such evidence may be appropriately offered in trial in particular contexts and for a variety of purposes, and should be addressed if it comes to trial. So what happened here was, well, nothing at this stage. Apparently the judge decided not to rule on it and let things play out in court, but Depp could not introduce the arrest, apparently. Well, I found this, I was going to put in the regular testimony, but I found this TikTok and I thought it might be more fun to share. So let's take a look at this one. I'm not dumb. I know you can't hit a woman. Well, there's my typos. I'm always good for that. But she did testify to this. And this is a funny TikTok.
I'm not dumb. I know you can't hit a woman. You can't hit a man. You can't hit anyone.
I did not fucking deck you. I fucking was hitting you. You're fine. I did not hurt you. I did not punch you. I was hitting you.
How are you?
That's the difference between me and you. You're a fucking baby.
And the truth shall set you free. Nothing further, Your Honor.
Well, let's start that again, because that's the most important part in the beginning.
I'm not dumb. I know you can't hit a woman. You can't hit a man. You can't hit anyone.
Boom. There it is. That's what opened the door. So let's see what Depp team filed after this, mid-trial. Let's see. This was filed on May 16th, right after the day of testimony. let's blow this one up a little bit for us. Plaintiff John C. Depp's memorandum in support of motion to question defendant Laura Heard on prior acts of violence. Mr. Depp should be permitted to engage in the following limited inquiry as to Ms. Heard's prior acts of violence, including the assault battery of her ex-girlfriend Tessa Van Ray and Ms. Heard's related arrest. 1. Isn't it true, Ms. Heard, that you've been violent with other people besides Mr. Depp? 2. You have previously been arrested for domestic violence, correct? 3. You assaulted your ex-girlfriend Tessa Van Ray in Seattle in September 20th, 2009, correct? Ms. Heard, if you would please take a look at the articles in front of you. The first one is June 7th from USA Today, titled Amber Heard arrested in 2009 on charge of hitting her girlfriend. Do you see that? And the second article is also from June 7th, 2016 from TMZ, titled Amber Heard arrested for domestic violence against girlfriend. Do you see that? Simply put, the testimony at trial has opened the door to such questions which are consistent with the court's prior ruling. First, both parties in this case have been accused of being violent with the other, and both parties have on multiple points claimed self-defense. Exhibit 1, trial transcript A, Mr. Depp describing self-defense in connection with the alleged December 15th incident. Exhibit 2, trial transcript, Ms. Heard claiming she threw a vase at Mr. Depp in defense. Such claims open the door to evidence of prior acts of violence. Barnes v. Commonwealth, evidence of specific acts is admissible to show the character of the victim for turbulence and violence. And indeed, this is consistent with the court's rulings in this case. As the court knows, there was only one prior instance where Mr. Depp was accused of violence against another person, Brooks v. Depp litigation, where Mr. Depp has been accused of punching a crew member on the set of film City of Lies. Mr. Depp filed a motion in limine to exclude such evidence, but the court found that Brooks can be used for liability just in rebuttal of any self-defense claim. Ms. Heard was then permitted at trial to ask Mr. Depp questions on cross about Brooks' case and the alleged assault. Are you currently in a lawsuit for assaulting a crew member on the set of one of your movies in July 2018, correct? Mr. Depp should be permitted to ask about Ms. Heard's prior act of violence as well. Second, Ms. Heard's prior violence and arrest speaks to her reputation, which is clearly at issue in this case. The arrest took place in 2009, just 2 to 3 years before Ms. Heard's relationship with Mr. Depp began, which means questions on Ms. Heard's arrest should be consistent with the court's ruling on Mr. Depp's prior arrests, as shown in the following excerpt from the court's order in Mr. Depp's motion in limine. Ordered. Mr. Depp's motion in limine 5 to exclude testimony regarding Mr. Depp's prior arrests and incidents of violence is granted as to liability issues and evidence in testimony regarding the arrest, but is denied as to reputation issues for damages. But such evidence shall be limited to 5 years before the inception of Ms. Heard's and Mr. Depp's relation through the present. And the court may give the jury an appropriate limiting instruction and is further. Moreover, multiple major publications wrote articles about the arrest. They provide the Exhibit USA Today article, Amber Heard arrested in 2009 on charge of hitting girlfriend. TMZ dated June 7th, titled Amber Heard arrested for domestic violence against girlfriend. At a minimum, Mr. Depp should be permitted to ask Ms. Heard about these headlines and any others on the same topic, as Ms. Heard was able to do with a stack of articles about Mr. Depp. We all heard that over and over again. Trial transcript 9, sidebar with the court, discussing how these articles harmed Mr. Depp's reputation, wherein Ms. Heard's counsel cited Shelfer v. Buffalt, and after which Ms. Heard was permitted to ask Mr. Depp about a stack of headlines that reflected negatively on Mr. Depp's reputation. Third, Ms. Heard has opened the door with her own testimony stating, I know you don't come back from that. I mean, you can't hit a woman. You can't hit a man. You can't hit anyone. But she has hit a woman before, multiple, in fact. Mr. Depp should be able to question her about it on rebuttal. For these reasons, Mr. Depp should be permitted to ask questions identified above as to Ms. Heard's prior acts. And this is the transcript jury trial conducted on April 20th. I'm looking at this way, the door in my office and my bedroom door is where I walked across the mezzanine. So this is where Johnny is talking about self-defense. And what happened at the end of the situation? Because of grabbing of the arms and the holding them to her side, so I didn't receive any more blows, and she was still fighting. I believe there was some kind of contact with our heads, our foreheads, or would happen if you were trying to calm someone like that. And then there was when she accused me of headbutting her, of giving her a headbutt or breaking her nose. But there was no blood. There was no, I didn't hit her nose. If there was anything at all, it was a lump, a bump of, well, I'm trying to restrain her and she's trying to get out of it. And there's going to be some contact here and there, an accidental contact, but not a headbutt. Now, if we recall that we also heard the audio in San Francisco where they talk about the headbutt, and Amber Heard explicitly says, I know you didn't think you did it. I know you didn't intend to. And she cut that off and it never made it to the UK. Transcript of trial. And this is, without saying what you said in the text, explain to me why you were sending it to your mom. I was reaching out. I was very lonely in what I was living in. And I wanted help. I wanted advice. I just wanted to talk to somebody and figure out how I could make this stop. And she goes on to say, 425, 26. Okay, so it goes on here. Your Honor, I'm going to move for admission of an exhibit. No objections. Okay, you could publish the picture. Thank you. How did you sustain that bruise, Amber? I had thrown Johnny slapped me. I walked away from him and that made it worse. We got into like a shouting match and he kind of did his thing with his body where I could tell he was going to hit me again. I picked up you remember kind of like a little, not a pot, but like a vase. And I remember I got away from him enough. And as he reeled back, I threw it in his direction and actually managed to get away before he got me. He grabbed me by the arm and he kind of just held me on the floor screaming at me. I don't know how many times he hit me in the face, but I remember being on the floor of my apartment. I just remember thinking, how could this happen again? Now remember, this was the photo shown of the little bruise on her arm, but no bruises on her face whatsoever. Seems so insignificant. Let's go on to. This is a transcript of a hearing, so this will be the sidebar. Thank you. I'm going to grant in part and deny in part. I'm going to grant, this is the motion about bringing in Johnny's, it would have been the Brooks trial. I'm going to grant as to liability issues except for the Brooks matter. The Brooks can be used for liability just in rebuttal of any self-defense claim. I'm getting a little specific, but that's for liability. I'm going to deny as to the reputation issues for damages claimed. So if they bring it in, she's supposed to give him an instruction to the jury that you can't award damages based on reputation. Motion to limine number 9, exclude references to his spending habits. Your Honor, so they did that. So let's go on to the exhibit. Now, this is the transcript of a sidebar. We don't get to hear these very much. We don't get to see them. We don't get to hear them at all. We rarely have seen a transcript. You are currently in a lawsuit for assaulting a crew member on this. Oh, sorry. This is not the sidebar. This is where they finally got to ask the question. Yes, somebody brought a case against me, a man named Greg Brooks. Question. Objection, Your Honor. Approach, relevance. This is now the sidebar. This is where the sidebar. So they've asked a question about Brooks. Now they're in the sidebar. This is a defamation case. I don't think either you can have improper character evidence in a defamation case. What's your objection? What's your other objection? Ms. Myers, relevance, Your Honor. What's your relevance? Mr. Rottenborn. Relevance is that the two bodyguards that were with him during the time of these allegations were Jerry Judge and Sean Bett, same people that were with him the night May 21st. Court, Judge, why is that relevant? Our belief is that Mr. Judge and Mr. Bett lied to protect him. They're all loyal to him. So the fact that he's being sued by someone for assaulting him on a movie set, and the same two people who were conveniently there on May 21st, that's direct relevance. I'll limit my questions. I won't ask him about the allegations, but I want to ask him one question. I'll say the two people who were with you, who were your security guards that day of the alleged assault, were Jerry Judge and Sean Bett. That's the only question I'll ask him that's relevant. Myers, that's tenuous. What happened between him and another man? If he's not going to ask, and that's where it ended. So apparently something got in. And then we had the articles. Then we got the articles. So he was able to ask a question about Brooks. Now, I find it interesting that they were focusing on Sean Bett and Jerry Judge, because we also know that the script supervisor took photos that day. But let's go on to I don't have a date on this. Shoot. Okay, well, let's go on. Johnny Depp isn't the only partner you've assaulted, the lawyer asked Amber Heard. Let's start with that because that's what they were allowed to finally get in.
You committed domestic violence against Miss Van Ree during your relationship, didn't you?
No, I did not.
You assaulted her at a Seattle airport in 2009, didn't you?
No, I did not.
And people saw that.
That's not true.
And it was covered in the press. Isn't that true?
It was planted in the press by Johnny's team 2 days after I got the TRO. Not
Can you
coincidentally.
please pull up Plaintiff's Exhibit 1279? So the article, the title is Amber Heard allegedly struck her ex-girlfriend.
Overruled.
Thank you. If I may start over. Amber
Hmm.
Heard allegedly struck her ex-girlfriend, Tassa Van Ree, at the airport in 2009. Did I read that right?
Yes, this is another example of the smear campaign.
So Mr. Depp is not the only domestic partner you've assaulted, is he, Miss Heard?
I've never assaulted Mr. Depp or anyone else that I've been romantically linked to, ever.
No further questions, Your Honor.
All right.
And it opened the door and we got a little glimpse, not a whole lot, but we got a little glimpse of the arresting officer.
Defendant in this matter, Amber Heard.
Yes, I am.
And how are you familiar with her?
I met her in 2009 at SeaTac International Airport.
Why were you at the airport?
I worked there.
What happened when you met Miss Heard in 2009?
I was in the baggage claim area and I observed her with a traveling companion, and they got into an altercation where Ms. Heard had grabbed her traveling companion and pulled something from her neck. At that point, I got up and went over to try to break up what appeared to be a fight. And I summoned a colleague to help me, and I stepped in between them and separated them, stopping any further injuries or escalation.
How would you describe the interaction between Miss Heard and her traveling companion?
Ms. Heard was aggressive towards her traveling companion, and she had reached up and grabbed her arm and pulled a necklace off of her, and then I observed her having it in her hand. She seemed to be not very steady on her feet. Her eyes were blurry and watery, and I could smell alcohol.
What was Miss Heard's traveling companion's reaction to being assaulted by Miss Heard?
Objection, relevance? And I'll sustain the objection.
On relevance?
Yes.
Okay. What did Miss Heard's traveling companion do?
She raised her hands in what appeared to be a defensive manner. But other than that, she was pretty stoic and didn't really respond much. Her stature was 2 or 3 inches taller than Miss Heard, so she didn't really need to have to defend herself.
How would you describe Miss Heard's demeanor when you stepped in between Miss Heard and her traveling companion?
She was somewhat dismissive. She just said, we're just having an argument. We're fine. We're fine. Because I was asking if they were okay. Are you okay? Is there anything wrong? What's going on? And
Objection, hearsay. Just objection, hearsay to what she's saying. All right. I'll sustain the objection. Next question.
What, if any, injuries did you observe on Miss Heard's traveling companion?
She had abrasion on the side of her neck where the necklace was, like a rope burn from the chain as it was removed.
Are you familiar?
And there it is. Something really important came out of that, which I hope the jury picked up. One of the things Amber Heard kept saying is she couldn't possibly assault Johnny because she was bigger than her. And Beverly made a very important point that she didn't feel that Tasya Van Ree had to defend herself because she was several, or would have any trouble defending herself because she was several inches taller than Amber. But that difference didn't stop Amber from assaulting her. So I thought that was an important statement. Now, I'm sad that they couldn't, when they introduced Beverly, she couldn't say she was the arresting officer. They downplayed her role there. But here's what they got. And they got it to the jury that she had been arrested before, as much as she wanted to downplay it. So that's what I got for you today. A little deep dive, not too long. I hope you enjoyed it. And I'll be bringing more. Thanks again, and have a great day.